A very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining us here on our Economics 101, where we take a close look at all things relating to the economy. Since coming into office, the Second Republic under President Emmerson Mnangagwa has made strides in job creation, re-engagement, and agricultural productivity, among other achievements aimed at fostering socio-economic development to eradicate poverty. Now, Zimbabwe's engagement and re-engagement efforts continue to bear fruit, with the recent visit by President Lukashenko of Belarus, cementing economic relations already existing between the two countries. Here in studio to help me unpack these and other opportunities for Zimbabwe as it progresses within the year 2023, we're visited in studio by Mr. Mike Kamungeremu, who is a businessman and also the president of the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you very much.
I guess to begin with, congratulations on your appointment as the president of the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce. Just very briefly, tell us about when you took on your tenure and what we can look forward to in that time.
Fantastic. So I took on the tenure in June 2022, and then I was part of the structures since 2016. And part of what I should do is to make sure that we take on what has been achieved so far by the other president that came before me.
Right.
And one key deliverable that we are aiming at is international engagement.
Right.
So you find that the president who was there in 2019 signed an MOU with the Belarus Chamber of Commerce and Industry. All we simply are doing now is to implement what was signed there.
Right.
So the continuity is there, which is one of the key deliverables that I have as a president before my term expires.
Right. Can one attribute that sort of engagement to the Second Republic's drive, which looks at re-engaging, but also extending further to new friends?
Yes, definitely. Even in 2019, when we signed the MOU with the Belarus Chamber of Commerce, it was when the president visited Belarus. So our president was part of the delegation. So we can attribute all that to the Second Republic, because it's the government that started it. Then we started riding on it, and now we are implementing it.
Okay. Now, the kick-starting of relations between Zimbabwe and Belarus has translated into real and impactful economic gains, could be argued. Can you walk us through how business and economic linkages strengthened between the two countries and under the auspices of the Zimbabwe-Belarus Business Forum?
Thank you very much. So on Monday, we hosted the Belarus-Zimbabwe Business Forum, where there was a delegation of about 50 business people from Belarus. So we were exchanging information. It's part of the implementation of the agreement that we have in place, where we said we have business missions, where we exchange key trade information, where we need markets, they assist, where we need capital, they assist, where we need retooling, they assist. So the re-engagement has really helped us. At the forum that we did on Monday, we signed about 6 more agreements with the private sector from Belarus. I'm told yesterday 8 more were signed with the government, and the idea is for businesses in Belarus and businesses in Zimbabwe to work hand in hand, to work together, so that we grow both economies for Zimbabwe and Belarus. So my hope is that some will find markets in Belarus, some will bring equipment. I think equipment has already started coming.
I do want to get into some of the opportunities. Just very briefly, could you just highlight to us, if at all, from the 6 MOUs, in what specific areas those were tied to?
Okay, so the primary one mainly is on agricultural equipment. So we have seen combined harvesters coming to Zimbabwe.
Right.
We have seen tractors coming to Zimbabwe. And most importantly, the Belarusians have already invested in Zimbabwe. So they set up a business which is helping those that are buying this equipment to get spare parts, to get knowledge through training, for repairs when they break down. So they've got a company that they've incorporated in Zimbabwe. And we are now saying, as the local business people, it's an opportunity for us to also service, to also maintain and distribute some of their products. And we are looking at expanding the variety of what is being brought, apart from just the agricultural, so that we move into energy and other sectors. So the delegation that came consisted of business people from pharmaceuticals that are manufacturing medicines, and they were also met by their counterparts from Zimbabwe. There were business people from food processing, who were also meeting their counterparts in Zimbabwe. So we expect technology transfer, apart from the fact that markets may also be exchanged.
Right.
They've also identified some raw materials which they use, like cotton, for example. They are the guys that came were very much interested in buying cotton from Zimbabwe.
Right.
We had Zim-Trade at the Belarus-Zimbabwe Business Forum, and they also did a presentation on what Zimbabwe can offer.
Right.
So the scope is so wide in terms of what we can benefit from
Right.
the engagement.
Tying into your capacity as the president of the National Chamber of Commerce, one can't help but also acknowledge the significance of industrialization to being able to meet some of the economic developments that Zimbabwe is striving towards. Belarus is a highly mechanized country to be able to develop and distribute equipment in the manner of agriculture. Where do we see ourselves tying that into a local complement where we can start being able to meet our own industrial requirements for our specific needs and benefit our economy?
Generally, the cries that have been there from industry are that the equipment that we have right now, not just in agriculture, but in industry generally, is now aging. Some of the machines were installed as way back as 1960, and there's need for retooling. So in the drive for retooling, this is one step in the right direction. So we are starting from agriculture, where we need to mechanize so that we grow more. We do more with less,
Right.
in line with technology.
Okay.
And like I highlighted before, that my wish is to see that extending to other areas, so that the equipment that we have in our industries today can be replaced by modern machinery that uses less energy and can process more. And then that will help the country.
Right. I'd like to pick up on that after we take a short break. We'll be right back with more Economics 101. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Economics 101, where we focus on all things that are relating to the economy. We do implore you to be part of the conversation. Get a hold of us on our social media platform at ZBC News Online. Send us your questions, comments, and your contributions. Still taking a very close look at Zimbabwe's engagement drive, most notably with the recent visit of the president of Belarus, President Alexander Lukashenko, currently joined in studio to help me unpack these and more issues. The president of the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Mike Kamungeremu. I'll also make sure that you do extend your contributions during the discussion. Now, picking up on the break, we looked at some of the mechanization drives that implore Zimbabwe to be able to take on the agricultural initiative, as is the case with Belarus. Help us once again very briefly appreciate how that does tie into our value addition component, which seems to be the key area that we're lacking to be able to have economic prosperity, as it were, here in Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much. I think you realize that agriculture provides the raw materials for industry. So for us to create jobs, we need to value add our crops. But the starting point to achieve that is to ensure that we are producing enough on the farms. And for us to be able to do that, we need the equipment, which is the mechanization that is happening right now. So we need the tractors, we need the combine harvesters, and apart from that, we need more, because we should be able to grow our crops throughout the year so that we produce sufficiently. When we have produced sufficiently, then we provide enough raw material for our industry. Soya bean, for example, must be produced in the country and be converted into cooking oil. Wheat must be produced in the country sufficiently. So the current drive is meant to get to that point where we have enough for our industry to value add and create enough jobs and avoid all shortages that can occur of the basic products that we require.
Right. Also appreciating how we can be able to grow and expand our industry. A concern that does come up. Let's take a close look at grain in Zimbabwe. Grain millers associations also extending further to some of the prerequisite requirements in US dollars that are being put forward. Shops in Ulawe, to some degree, even currently not finding themselves in a position where a maize meal is available purely based on the issue of USD remittance being made by the larger fast-moving consumer good outlets. How then do we handle that particular anomaly affecting us here in Zimbabwe when local companies can't even pay suppliers in local currency, but they require that in US dollars, yet when they sell to retailers, it must be in local currency?
I think that's now a monetary policy issue, which we have even talked about as the Chamber of Commerce. We have been highlighting even to the monetary authorities that if the right rate is available for our currencies, surely people must not really worry about which currency they are being paid. If they are paid Zim-Dollar at the right rate, they surely should not complain. If they know that when they need the US dollar, they are able to go to the bank and get the US dollar for importation, surely they cannot worry that they are being paid in Zim-Dollar. So that is issue number one. But most importantly, when we come to this issue of mechanization, we need to substitute our imports. We should not be importing maize. We should not be importing wheat. We should not be importing soybean, for example. We should grow that on the farms. So the reason why some customers or millers or manufacturers end up saying we want US dollars is because they are not getting enough product locally. They want to import that. And then probably when they go to their bank, they're not able to get the foreign currency. So we can solve all those problems by being productive. If we produce more using what we are getting right now in terms of the machinery, then our expectation is that people will get all that they require from local sources, which means local currency can be sufficient.
Right. From your assessment and appreciation of what's taking place, that the year 2023 is an election year. What do you think government should do in order to instill confidence in the business sector?
Okay, so for confidence to be there must be consistency on the part of government, particularly in terms of policy making. We don't need to be surprised that something is going to just come out. And I think of late, there's been stability, and that stability is thanks to a lack of surprises in terms of policy making. That's issue number one. Then issue number two, most importantly, no wonder why we are a business member organization. Government must be consulting us because we need to own whatever policies are being put forward. When we have been consulted and then we put our input, even if they don't then take everything that we say, because we know there are several interests that need to be balanced, then surely we will have confidence in the policies.
Right. We'll unpack a bit more on that particular contribution straight after this break. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back to the third and final segment of Economics 101, where we take a close look at all things relating to the economy. Today, I'm joined in studio by the president of the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Mike Kamongeremu. We do implore you once again to be part of the conversation. Send us your questions, comments, and your contributions at ZBC News Online. Now, Mr. Kamongeremu, before we took the break, we're looking at Zimbabwe's impeding elections that are coming up soon, but at the same time also the stability and the confidence that seems to, in a perspective glance, held by the business community. What, in your appreciation and understanding of the business environment, has contributed to that?
Okay, so the current stability that we are enjoying, I think from around October, November, December, we have seen a bit of consistency, even in terms of policy making. That's number one. Number two, we have been consulted. We can confirm that we give quite some input into the budget process. We have even given input into the monetary policy. So we have been moving hand in hand with our government. And in December, we were in Victoria Falls for the tripartite negotiating forum that brought together business, government, and labor. And where there is coherency among those three tripartite partners, there's bound to be stability. So what we are enjoying right now is also a result of that, because we have been talking with our government. Where there were issues, government have been raising. Where we felt they needed to improve, we also have been raising. Right. And thanks to that, we have seen some of our recommendations being implemented. Even the issue of the reduction of the 4% intermediate money transfer tax on foreign currency transactions. We lobbied hard for that, and government listened and implemented. So that's part of why we are seeing this stability.
Now, looking at the stability that we have, some would argue that it is not expected to last as long as it could be, considering that we are backing ourselves in the US dollar. The US dollar not looking pretty good on the global market at the moment. OPEC countries are considering to pull out on the petrodollar position. A clear shift of Saudi Arabia towards the BRICS nations wanting to become part of that. Can we find ourselves falling short on the foreign currency reserve component in Zimbabwe going forward?
Okay, I wouldn't want to be a prophet of doom. I'm not an economic analyst either. I actually follow so many of them that try to predict how things are going to pan out. Some come true, some don't, because they'll be working on assumptions. But as a businessman, what I want to focus more on is, let's produce. Where we are producing, if there's high productivity in our country, I'm sure we'll be able to solve most problems. Money is a derivative. Currency is a derivative. It's you can have any currency. In any case, even the US dollar is just a piece of paper. But the biggest currency that is required is confidence in the economy. If we instill confidence, if we produce more, then no matter the currency, things will be okay.
I'm glad that you do say that, confidence in the economy. Questions around confidence in the Zim dollar do come up then. And a lot of that being tied into export-based incentives. Now, my concern that does come up from that in that particular regard is becomes the price parity that Zimbabwe finds itself with when it comes to exporting, especially within the region. Isn't the use of the United States dollar still hindering us from being able to be competitive within our own region?
Okay, so that is a very important point. I think it has been raised several times. Ultimately, we need our own currency. That is the truth. But because of confidence issues regarding mainly what people have experienced in the past, they are skeptical and do not want to immediately go back to their own currency. I think there's a roadmap which has already been shared. So if we take it step by step and give people the chance to recover from what they suffered in the past, I'm quite sure at some point they will then appreciate that value is not in the currency that you are receiving.
I'm glad that you do say that, and also understanding, of course, that you're not speaking as an economist, but sure you can give us an appreciation of some of the basic challenges. We've also found that informal trade has gone so far as to incorporate the US dollar at a lower value of even the RTGS equivalent within outlets. How then, again, do we find ourselves in a situation where the opposite is now taking place, where you made incentives for a local currency to be able to buy goods accessibly, but the informal sector is now going, right, we'll sell you the same goods at a cheaper price, but in US dollars?
You find that the issue of informalization is a big issue. We have talked about it as the Chamber of Commerce, that we need to simplify processes, simplify the tax systems to help formalize the economy. Because what you realize with the informal, because they don't pay tax, they are not subject to some of the overheads that the formal businesses are subjected to. And they can afford to do what you are saying, where they can lower, because they are not going to pay any tax to anybody. So if we then incentivize formalization and encourage more and more of those businesses to formalize, then that will help the economy. You realize that there are even other businesses. We've had several reports of some businesses that are actually also using the informal sector, because just if you imagine where the products are coming from, they are coming from formal businesses. And that is happening because of certain things that we have already talked about that need to be corrected on the formal side of business, so that business is done formally.
Right. A closing area of discussion here. We are in the first quarter of the year. What are your appreciations of the developments within this quarter, but also your reliable appreciation of where we can see that we'll see what that translating into as we go throughout the rest of the year?
What we appreciate first and foremost is the stability. Yes, we appreciate also the fact that we have seen some distortion in exchange rate, which we had managed to go over around October, November, December. But I would personally probably connect that to the auction, which was on a break. Now the auction is back, and the governor of the RBZ has already announced that the backlog was cleared. And now people can get foreign currency from the auction, which is formal. And then they also committed that they will settle all bids within 14 days. If that happens, then it means the productive sectors are able to get foreign currency from the formal market. And then that means there's no need to go to the black market. So that can enable us to continue with the stability that we are enjoying in the economy.
That's it. Well, we do hope to be able to experience that stability, and we will invite you back during the course of the year to appreciate more of your insights. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, then we're joined in the studio there by the president of the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce and Businessmen, Mr. Mike Kamungeremu. We do implore you once again to keep being part of the conversation on our social media platform at ZBC News. And now, for now, pleasant viewing.